Hi everybody, Jacob here. Welcome back to the Fashion Bunker. I'm all dressed in red, black, yellow. Mickey Mouse has a bit of yellow on top. And everything is kind of calculated. The proportions, the colors, the patterns. I'm looking at myself in the screen trying to figure it out. Why? Well, because there's a very interesting question coming from my Instagram profile. You could check out my Instagram profile. It's called Super Jacob, all spelled together. And from time to time, I ask you to, give me some questions, and I read those questions, give shout outs to you guys, and we chat together in a sort of channel talk here in the Fashion Bunker. So all of this because it kind of has something to do with friends in an indirect way. Let's read the question. The question is from Them GM Kid. Them GM Kid, how you doing, sweetie? AKA Lanier on YouTube. You should definitely check out Lanier's channel on YouTube. He is the best fragrance reviewer out there from Sense Memory. But I digress. So, what does Lanier write to us? Dearest and most elegant friend, thank you so much, sweetie. I am immersed in a fascinating book, The Essence of Style by Joan Dejean. How the French invented high fashion, fine food, chic cafes, style, sophistication, and glamour. It all began with that high-heeled, high-stepping, bewigged beauty, Louis XIV, aka the Sun King. This book is an amazing read, and if you haven't read it, I hope you do. What are your thoughts on the birth of French style and its considered influence over us for the last 300 years? Coco, Coco, Coco. Well, dear Lanier, so honestly, I think the French consider their fashion, style, elegance, sense of dealing with proportions, they deal with it and they handle it the same way a person who lives on the seaside, somewhere in a little town on the sea, on the beach, on the shore, in the mountains, one of those cities that live off of tourism and tourists and live and survive thanks to tourism and tourists. This type of people tends to hate tourists, but they can't live without them. But then when the tourists flood their cities, they don't have any peace, and you just feel violated in so many ways. And I think in a way that's what how the French see fashion and style and beauty, or how do you call it exactly? French style, the birth of French style, because the whole world would love to be a part of it, to understand it, to be as elegant as they are. The whole world kind of dreams or has this vision of the French being the most elegant, and stylistically speaking, forward out there. And the French praise themselves of being that way. But the snobism of the French is that they're like that person living in that tiny little village that doesn't want to, that needs that tourist to survive, but hates the tourist. So they know that the world needs to praise them in order for them to have that high position. But at the same time, they don't want to let anybody close to their standards. They don't want to let anybody close to their style, to their beauty, to their proportion, to their sense of proportion, to their sense of anything. But alas, a time cometh when the rest of the world also figures things out on their own without necessarily needing the French sense of style or whatever to move forward stylistically, artistically speaking. Again, question. What are your thoughts on the birth of French style? Right. So, I adore the French style. But my thoughts are, once you give birth to some, because your question enthralls a word, right? The birth. Once you give birth to something, you got to let it go. It has a life of its own. You can just care for a baby as long as it needs a nipple and as long as it can't walk and talk and think for itself. But once it starts thinking for itself, becomes also legally of age, that thing you gave birth to is free to go. And it's going to go, whether you like it or not. It's going to have a life of its own. Same happens with style. Somebody might have contributed more than somebody else to configure it, to create it. But once it's out there, once the idea, the notion of it is out there, it's free for everybody to grasp. And that's where the French are not so good at. That's what they are not so good at. They're not so good at accepting the fact that others might even surpass them and further develop what they have initiated. And it's okay if somebody further develops something that you have initiated, because you gave birth to something beautiful. Let it live, let it grow, let it breathe, let it flourish. Very important. Just like an artist, when an art piece, and this is something, the first thing I've been taught in the academy, studying art, once you have given birth to an art piece, it is like your child and you got to let it go. A lot of artists have difficulties parting from their artworks, in terms of selling them. I know it's horrible when you mix money with art. It shouldn't really be. But alas, how is a starving artist supposed to feed himself? So you got to envision your artwork as a baby. And yeah, you should not sell your baby, duh, but you're selling the artwork, meaning you're freeing it. So once it's out there, it has a life of its own. Some collector might then take it to an auction to, up the price even more on the artist. There's a lot of strategies there. And then it could go from, person to person. It could exchange homes. It could end up in catalogs and books. And then some art critic is going to write about that art piece that you made, that you thought so fondly of, and that art critic might not think so fondly of it, or that art critic might interpret it in a way you never wanted to interpret it, or you never thought it would be interpreted like. And yet, that art piece inspired somebody else to write about it, to give their own opinion about it. It moved, it touched somebody so much that somebody starts, writing about it, investing their time and energy and spirit to express what they felt while they were experiencing your artwork. That is exactly what I mean when I say the artwork has become alive and it has a life of its own. It is free to inspire others in ways you, the creator of that artwork, might have never even thought to inspire yourself, others. That's the magic of art. That's the magic of an art piece. And that's also the magic of style and fashion. Things I might like, you might not like. And they're both fine. We're going to judge each other for it. We're going to throw shade at each other for it. That's just part of the game. That does not take away the fact that once you create something, it can also be just an opinion, an idea. Once it's out there for others to grasp, for others to reinterpret, for others to love or to hate. Speaking of love and hate and red and orange and yellow and style and beauty and proportions, look who I brought out of the bunker. It's been a while. It's been, I don't know, 2 years that I haven't shown this beauty. Look at it. The first piece Jeremy Scott made for Moschino, the first collection, Fall-Winter 14. The McDonald's collection, Moschino, over 20 billion served. Why do I show this piece right now? Because this is the idea. This is the magic. This is what lives on. Somebody stylistically and practically invented a bag, a matelassé bag, within higher fashion. Chanel used matelassé, which was already used practically in stables for jockeys and male military outfits, but she turned the matelassé into a pattern for a bag. McDonald's created food. Hamburgers with their logo. Moschino had a heart for a logo. Jeremy combined all three. Consumer society, fast food became fast fashion. This was Jeremy Scott's manifesto when he came at Moschino. His manifesto was fast fashion. So he created the fast food line, products that were available for purchase right after the fashion show. You did not need to wait 6 months anymore for pieces to arrive. You could buy them immediately. This bag was available for purchase right after the fashion show. Now, fast fashion also initiated the downfall of fashion, perhaps, and the death of fashion. But you gotta die to be reborn. So who knows what's coming in the future? I'm not that pessimistic as I sometimes appear to be. I never give up on love, and I'm sure that there's a development, and the influences that we have been given or that we have had in our lives while we were growing up are going to bring some sort of fruits, and we're going to further develop them. Some of us are more or less capable of transforming everything we've learned and went through in our lives to create something better out of it. Some of us just kind of get blocked and stop and don't continue growing, but others do. Others continue growing. And here we have the Chanel, the McDonald's, and the Moschino heart, all combined together. These are all ideas and businesses, the Chanel business, the Chanel idea of comfort and luxury, the McDonald's business and idea of fast food, and the Moschino idea of criticizing politically all of this stuff. Even though in this piece I don't see much critique, it's very pop art, because Jeremy is less critical to society than Franco Moschino used to be. But all of these ideas that all these brands and people had have become public domain. And there you have another designer who got inspired by all of these elements and created this bag. That's why I love this bag, one of the many reasons I love this bag. And I'm so grateful that it has a plastic chain instead of the metal one so it doesn't get tarnished, because the gold toned chromed hardware on the early, but I mean on all Moschino bags is just not that good quality. So very happy for the plastic. This bag was made in Italy, by the way, not in another country. That's kind of good. Even though a lot of glazing. It has the back pocket. I mean, I'm telling you guys, this is for best or better and worse. For better or for worse, this is a perfect example. A lot of people are going to think this is tacky and ugly. I don't. I think this is a genius move. Unfortunately, I'm not so keen and fond of all the new collections that are coming up from Moschino. It's kind of getting a bit repetitive, and I'm not looking forward to it anymore, even though I respect a lot what Jeremy does. But to me, this was what started it all, and it's still to date my favorite one. Plus, combined on the camera with all this lighting, it doesn't seem like these reds match up very much, but actually they do in real life. It's just that this is a very, very shiny type of leather that reflects light in a different way than a mattified piece of cotton would. So this absorbs more light. This one reflects it off. So this one kind of appears almost orangey on camera, even though it's not at all. And then the more mattified textures of fabrics absorb light more. So you have also the cap here that appears to be darker red hue than the bag is. But when I put them side by side, they're actually very, very similar in real life. Anyway, so thank you so much, Louis XIV. But you might have initiated a lot of style and taste, but you also made a lot of people suffer, and you also tortured people and killed people and considered yourself a god, considered yourself above everything and everybody else. And that, in my personal opinion, is never a good way of initiating something that other people might love in the future. Because you're planting a seed of some sort of hate within whatever you do, if you truly believe that you're on top of the world and that you have more powers and rights than anybody else. all your gifts and talents mean nothing to you if you do not know how to share them, if you do not know how to love, really, how to forgive. I don't know. Think about that next time you want to design something. Think about the positive side of something, you know. I never appreciated beauty just for the sake of beauty. Aesthetics just for the sake of aesthetics. There has to be a deeper purpose somewhere in there, you know. I'm not the type of person, I mentioned this in other videos, I stopped eating, you know, certain type of fruits that have to be imported from far away, because think about it. How can you pay so little for a pineapple? I mean, depending where you live, of course, but let's say in some states in America or in Europe, it takes a long time for a pineapple to arrive to a country where it doesn't grow, where it's not raised, where it's not grown. Same for bananas. And then you pay so little for it. So think about how much actually the worker who had to plant that banana, crop that banana, how much they actually earn. They earn nothing. Barely anything to survive. And here we are, you know, picking our bananas at the supermarket. Which size, proportion, color of the skin of the banana is better? Heaven forbid it had a dark spot on it. Even though when it gets darker spots, it's tastier because the starch turns into sugar, so the banana is actually more ripe. But heaven forbid proportions were off. Louis XIV also taught us that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you have, please do thumb it up and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you haven't already but do wish to, please consider subscribing to my channel here on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So guys, now we know more or less, depending on how we want to see the truth, which side of the coin, because the coin has always two sides. But I digress. Either way the coin falls, we still never give up on love. Love you guys. See you soon. Take care. Bye.